The city of Ardan was old, its stone walls rising high above the flat plains. The gates were tall, built with metal and iron, always guarded by men who carried spears and wore heavy armor. Beyond the gates, travelers came and went, traders crossed with their carts, and farmers brought food to the markets. The people of Ardan lived busy lives, too occupied with their own concerns to pay attention to what stood just outside their walls. There, on the dry ground by the gate, a single pole had stood for as long as anyone could remember, and tied to that pole was an alien woman. Her body was tall and slender, her skin pale with a faint glow beneath it. Her hair was silver, falling in waves down her shoulders, though the wind and rain had tangled it over many seasons. Her eyes were closed most of the time, yet sometimes they flickered open, showing a soft blue light that unsettled those who noticed. The people called her the sentinel on the pole or the warning. Children were told stories that if they got too close, she would curse them. Grown men dismissed her as nothing but a remnant of a long-ago war. No one remembered clearly why she was there. Some said she was an enemy soldier, captured and displayed as a symbol of victory. Others whispered that she had betrayed her own people and had been left behind as punishment. A few even claimed she had once come to help humans but had been chained when fear turned against her. But the truth had been buried under years of silence. Rian, a young man of 20, often walked past her on his way to work at the city's outer farms. He was used to seeing her there, just as he was used to seeing the old road and the tall grass on the plains. Yet something about her always caught his eye. While most people ignored her, he could not. Sometimes he thought she moved ever so slightly, as if breathing. Sometimes he thought her eyes were watching. One afternoon, while waiting for the guards to open the gates, Rian stood a little longer than usual near the pole. He studied her face. Her skin looked untouched by age, without wrinkles or signs of decay, though she had been there for decades. How could anyone remain alive, bound to a pole under the sun, rain, and storms? A farmer standing nearby noticed his stare and shook his head. "Best not to look too close, boy," the farmer muttered. "She's not human. Whatever keeps her alive, it's not for us to understand." Rian nodded politely but did not move away. When the gates opened, he walked past her slowly. For a moment her eyes opened, faint blue glowing in the sunlight. His steps froze. Their eyes met. It lasted only a breath, but he felt something stir inside him, like a question left unanswered. That night, Rian could not sleep. He remembered the stories his grandfather used to tell, stories about the great conflict between humans and the starborn races. His grandfather had once fought on the city walls when ships had fallen from the sky, and strange soldiers had marched across the land. Rian remembered him saying that not all aliens were enemies, that some had tried to protect humans. But those words had been silenced by the years, replaced with suspicion and pride. The next morning, Rian decided to ask questions. He went to the market and spoke to an old merchant who had lived through the early years of the city. "Why was she put there?" Rian asked quietly. The old merchant frowned. "The alien. She was taken prisoner. That much I know. Some say she led an attack. Others claim she saved us once but was chained anyway. The truth is buried, lad. You'd do well not to dig it up." But Rian could not let it go. Each day as he passed the gate, he watched the woman more closely. He noticed her chest rise faintly, like the slow rhythm of breathing. He noticed the ropes that bound her were not ordinary ropes. They glimmered faintly as if woven with strange energy. And he noticed that no animal dared go near her. Birds never perched on the pole, and dogs always barked and pulled their masters away. One evening, while the sun was setting red across the plains, Rian lingered by the gate as the guards were closing it. He pretended to check the wheels on his cart, but in truth he was watching her. To his surprise, her lips moved. No sound came, but he saw the shape of words. He could not understand them, yet he knew she was speaking. He felt a strange pull, as if she were calling not with her voice but with her presence. That night, Rian dreamed of stars. He dreamed of ships falling from the sky, of bright weapons flashing, and of a woman standing tall against the darkness. When he woke, his heart was pounding. The dream felt more like a memory that was not his own. Days turned into weeks, but his unease grew. He asked more people, though most had no answers. Some warned him to stop asking. Others laughed at him. But the more they dismissed her, the more determined he became. He knew what he had seen. The alien woman was alive, and there was meaning behind her presence. One rainy evening, Ryan stayed near the gate after everyone else had gone. The guards had retreated inside their posts, seeking shelter from the storm. Lightning flashed, illuminating the plains in bright white. He walked toward the pole. Water streamed down her face, yet her eyes were open again. They glowed brighter this time, shining against the darkness. Ryan stepped closer, his boots sinking in the wet soil. His heart hammered in his chest. "Can you hear me?" he whispered, though he doubted she could understand. Her lips moved again, shaping words that echoed faintly in the storm. For the first time, he heard a sound, soft, weak, but real. He could not understand the language, yet the tone carried meaning. Gratitude, plea, hope. He stared at her in silence, then looked at the ropes that bound her wrists and waist. They pulsed faintly, humming with energy. These were no ordinary ropes. Whoever had bound her had used technology beyond his knowledge. He reached out, his fingers brushing the rope. A shock of energy ran through his hand, and he pulled back with a gasp. The woman's eyes closed slowly again, as if she had spent the last of her strength. Ryan stood there, soaked in rain, trembling with confusion and fear. For years she had been nothing but a figure on a pole, ignored by all. But now he knew. She was alive, still enduring after decades. And she wanted something. When he returned home, he sat by the fire and thought about what he had seen. His mind was filled with questions. Why had no one cared that she lived? Why had the city left her there, bound and silent, for 20 long years? And most of all, what would happen if he chose to act? The days ahead would not be easy. He felt the weight of a choice pressing down on him. But deep inside, he knew one truth. He could no longer pretend she was only a forgotten warning outside the city gates. The city of Ardan woke early each day. The bells rang at dawn, calling workers to the fields and traders to the markets. The gates opened wide, letting people move freely between the safety of the walls and the wide plains beyond. Ryan moved with the flow of the crowd, his cart loaded with baskets of grain. Yet his eyes drifted again toward the pole outside the gate. The alien woman was still there, her silver hair blowing in the morning wind. To everyone else she was invisible, nothing more than a shadow in the corner of their lives. To Ryan, she was a question that grew larger with each passing day. All that day, while he worked in the fields, he thought about her. He remembered the way her lips had moved in the storm, the faint sound that had reached him, the strange energy that had shocked his hand when he touched the rope. He could not let it go. The city had buried its history, and he wanted to uncover it. That evening, instead of going home, he made his way to the Hall of Records. It was a wide stone building near the council chambers, filled with old scrolls, tablets, and broken data screens from earlier centuries. Few people visited it anymore, except scholars who studied trade numbers or councilmen who needed to settle disputes about land. The keeper of records, an old man named Brannick, sat at a wooden desk, reading by the light of a flickering lamp. He looked up when Ryan entered. "What brings you here, boy?" Brannick asked, his voice deep and rough. "I'm looking for stories," Ryan said carefully. "Old stories. About the wars with the starborn races. About them prisoners," the old man squinted. "Most young men ask about farming techniques or maps for trade." "You come for old wars?" Ryan nodded. "I want to know why there is an alien woman tied outside the city gates." Brannick's hand froze on the page. He leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing. "Most do not speak of her. She has been there longer than you have lived." "That is why I ask," Ryan said softly. "If she has been there for 20 years, then someone must remember why." The old man studied him for a long moment. Then with a sigh he rose and shuffled into the deeper shelves. He returned with a cracked leather book, its pages yellow with age. "This is one of the last chronicles," Brannick said, setting it on the desk. "Written by men who fought in the Skyfall Wars." Ryan opened the book carefully. The writing was uneven but clear enough. It spoke of a fleet of ships that had descended from the stars. Some carried enemies who sought to conquer the land. Others carried those who claimed to be protectors. The city had survived by uniting with some and fighting against others. "What does it say about her?" Ryan asked. Brannick pointed to a line. "It speaks of a woman of light who came with warnings. She told of greater enemies still among the stars. She fought beside humans in the early battles, but then the council turned against her. They feared her power, feared her people's technology, so they bound her, claiming it was justice." Ryan read the words again and again. His chest tightened. So she was not our enemy. She was our ally. The old man shrugged. The past is never so simple. Perhaps she betrayed them. Perhaps she was too strong and the council wanted no rivals. The truth is clouded. Then why is she still alive? Ryan asked. Brannock closed the book. That is the question that troubles me as well. No flesh should endure so long without food or drink. If she yet breathes, it is by means we do not understand. Rian left the hall with his mind burning. He walked the streets, the night air cool around him, his thoughts heavy. If what he had read was true, then the woman outside the gates had once been a guardian. And instead of being honored, she had been chained like a criminal. Over the next days, Ryan returned to the records again and again. He searched for more stories, more fragments of history. He pieced together scraps of knowledge. The woman's people had been called the Illyrians. They were known for their long lives and luminous bodies. Some humans had feared them. Others had trusted them. The wars had left scars, but the Council of Ardan had chosen suspicion over gratitude. Still, no clear answer explained why she had been bound outside the gates instead of simply executed. Ryan thought about it often. Perhaps the Council had wanted her to stand as a symbol. Perhaps they had hoped her slow endurance would frighten others. But the more he thought, the more he felt it was wrong. One evening, Ryan decided to seek someone who had lived through those years. He found an old soldier sitting in the corner of a tavern, a scar running across his face, his hands trembling slightly from age. The man's name was Darren. Rian sat beside him and offered him a drink. "Tell me about the wars," Rian said. The soldier laughed bitterly. "You are too young to care about old battles. The city is at peace now." "I care," Ryan insisted. "Tell me about the alien woman." Darren's laughter stopped. His eyes hardened, and for a moment Ryan thought he would refuse. But then the old soldier spoke quietly. "I remember her," Darren said. "She was not our enemy. She stood beside us when the sky burned. Her hands threw fire against the invaders. Her shield saved men on the walls. I saw her with my own eyes. But after the battles, the council grew fearful. They said no city should depend on a stranger's strength. So they turned on her. Why tie her to a pole?" Ryan asked. Darren's hands clenched. "Because they could not kill her. We tried. Blades did not pierce her skin. Fire did not burn her. Poison had no effect. So they bound her with ropes woven by the last of our engineers. Ropes filled with energy taken from fallen starships. And there she stayed." Ryan's heart pounded. The truth was worse than he had expected. The woman had been a protector, not an enemy. She had been betrayed by fear, and for 20 years she had endured in silence, alive but powerless. That night, as Rian walked home, he felt anger rising inside him. Anger at the council that had chained her. Anger at the city that ignored her. Anger at himself for waiting so long to see the truth. He remembered her eyes glowing faintly in the storm, and her lips moving as though asking for help. The next day, Ryan made a choice. He would no longer watch in silence. He began to speak with others quietly at first, testing their thoughts. Most dismissed him. Some warned him. A few listened, their eyes uncertain. Word spread slowly that a young farmer was asking dangerous questions about the sentinel outside the gates. One evening, as the sun sank low, Ryan went again to stand before her. The guards eyed him suspiciously but said nothing. He looked into her face, into the faint glow of her eyes. "I know who you are now," he whispered. "You were not our enemy. You were our ally. I will not let you stay here forever." For the first time, he thought he saw the shadow of a smile cross her lips. It was faint, so faint he almost doubted it. But it gave him strength. Behind him, the guards shifted uneasily, muttering to each other. They had noticed his long visits, and suspicion grew. Yet Rian did not move. He stood firm, feeling a strange bond growing between him and the forgotten sentinel. He knew the path ahead would be dangerous. The council would not approve. The city would resist, but his heart had chosen. He would uncover the full truth, and when the time came, he would free her. The city of Ardan moved on as if nothing had changed. Traders filled the market. Guards patrolled the walls. Children ran through the streets. But for Rian, nothing was the same. Each time he passed the gates, he looked at the alien woman bound to the pole, and each time his resolve grew stronger. He could no longer see her as a warning. He saw her as a prisoner. The guards noticed his visits. At first they laughed and called him foolish. "Talking to a ghost," they said. But as the days passed and he kept returning, their laughter turned into suspicion. They began asking questions. Why was he standing so close? Why did he linger when everyone else walked past? Ryan gave them simple answers. I am only curious, he said. But inside he knew curiosity was no longer enough. One evening he returned from the fields late. The sun was setting, painting the plains gold and red. The guards were changing their posts, some leaving for the barracks, others stepping out to begin their shift. Ryan slowed his cart near the gate, pretending to adjust a wheel. His eyes drifted to the pole. The woman's head was bowed, her hair falling across her face. She looked weaker than before. A sudden fear gripped him. Was she finally dying? He set the cart aside and stepped closer. Can you hear me? He whispered. Her eyes opened, glowing faint blue in the fading light. Slowly her lips moved again. This time a faint sound followed, like wind through hollow stone. The words were not in his language, yet their tone pierced him. He could almost understand. A plea, a request, freedom. Ryan's hands trembled. He reached out, touching the ropes again. The sharp energy coursed through his skin, but this time he did not pull away. He forced his hand to stay. The glow of the ropes pulsed, then dimmed, as if reacting to his touch. A guard's voice shouted behind him. Step back, boy. Ryan jerked his hand away, heart pounding. The woman's eyes closed again, her strength fading. The guard strode up, glaring. You will not meddle with her. She is bound for a reason. What reason? Ryan demanded. She was no enemy. She fought beside us, the guard scowled. That is not for you to judge. The council decided. Do not question their will. But Ryan did question it. As he walked home, his anger boiled. The council had left her bound for 20 years. A living being treated as nothing more than a symbol. She was alive, suffering in silence, and the people had been taught not to care. That night, Ryan dreamed again. He dreamed of flames on the walls, of strange soldiers storming the gates. He saw himself standing in a battlefield, yet it was not truly him. It was her memory flowing into his mind. He saw the alien woman fighting beside human soldiers, shielding them from blasts of light. Her voice calling commands they somehow understood. And then he saw the betrayal. Humans surrounding her, binding her hands, chaining her to the pole while she cried out in disbelief. Ryan woke in a sweat, his chest heaving. The dream was too clear to be only his imagination. Somehow she was reaching into his mind, showing him what had been. The next morning he made a decision. He could not wait any longer. If he left her there, she would fade away and the truth of her sacrifice would be lost. He began to plan. The guards were strongest during the day, but at night their numbers thinned. The storm season was returning. On stormy nights their focus was on the walls, not the gate. He remembered the night when lightning had lit her eyes brighter than ever before. He would wait for such a night again. In the days that followed, Ryan continued his work, hiding his thoughts behind simple words and ordinary tasks. But each evening he went to the gate, speaking softly to her, even if she did not answer. He wanted her to know she was not forgotten. One evening, while he stood there, an old woman approached. Her face was lined with age, her eyes sharp with memory. She studied him for a long moment before speaking. You visit her often, the woman said. Yes, Ryan admitted. The old woman's gaze shifted to the alien figure. I was a girl when they tied her there. I remember her face. She saved my brother when the sky soldiers attacked, yet they chained her as if she were a beast. I asked my father why. He told me it was fear. Fear of her strength, fear of what humans did not understand. Then you believe me, Ryan said quickly. She is no enemy. The old woman nodded slowly. I believe she was wronged. But the city will not hear it. They have grown comfortable with their lies. Her words hardened Ryan's resolve. He thanked her, then left before the guards noticed their conversation. The days passed and then the storm came. The sky darkened with thick clouds, lightning flashing in the distance. Rain pounded against the walls of Ardan, and the guards huddled under their shelters. Ryan slipped from his home and moved through the empty streets. His cloak was soaked by the time he reached the gate. The alien woman stood as she always had, bound against the pole, her hair plastered to her face by the rain. Her eyes opened as he approached, glowing bright in the storm. Ryan pulled a small blade from his belt. He knew ordinary steel would not cut the ropes, but he had to try. He slashed at the bonds, only for sparks to fly as the blade snapped in half. The ropes pulsed with energy, unbroken. He pressed his hand to them instead, forcing himself to endure the shock. His body shook, pain shooting up his arm, but he did not let go. The glow of the ropes flickered. The woman's eyes widened as if urging him to continue. "Hold on," Ryan gasped. "I will free you." The storm raged around them, thunder shaking the ground. The ropes dimmed more, their hum weakening. His vision blurred, but he pressed harder. Finally, with a crack like breaking stone, one of the bonds split apart, its energy shattering into the night. The woman staggered forward, her hands still tied by the remaining ropes. She looked at him, her lips moving with words he still could not understand. But her tone carried strength, gratitude, determination. Behind them, a horn sounded. The guards had noticed. Rian turned, his heart racing. Torches flickered in the rain as soldiers rushed from the barracks. He looked back at her, at the rope still binding her arms and waist. He knew he could not finish before they arrived. But he also knew one thing. The city would never allow her freedom. The guards reached them, shouting, weapons drawn. "Step away from her." Ryan stood his ground, chest heaving, rain streaming down his face. "She is not your enemy," he cried. "She was never your enemy." The guards circled, unsure whether to strike him or her. The woman's eyes glowed brighter than ever before, her body radiating faint light. She lifted her head, and for the first time her voice rose above the storm. It was not in human words, but the sound shook the air with power. The guards froze in fear. Lightning struck the plains beyond the walls, the flash blinding. The ropes binding her waist cracked and broke, sparks scattering into the storm. She stumbled forward, her legs weak from decades of stillness. Ryan caught her, supporting her weight. The guards shouted again, moving closer. But something had changed. The woman stood tall, her glow steady, her presence commanding. Though weak, she radiated strength that made the guards hesitate. Ryan looked at her, his hand still gripping her arm. "I will not leave you," he said firmly. She turned her head slightly, her glowing eyes meeting his. For the first time she spoke words in his language, broken but clear. "You choose." The meaning struck him deep. He had chosen. He had broken the silence. And now the city would face the truth it had hidden for 20 years. The storm raged, the guards closed in, and the future of Ardan balanced on a single moment. The moment when a young man freed the forgotten sentinel. The storm passed with the coming dawn. The sky above Ardan cleared slowly, the clouds breaking apart into streaks of pale light. The city walls dripped with rain, and puddles covered the ground outside the gates. The guards had spent the night whispering among themselves, shaken by what they had seen. Rian stood near the alien woman, his body aching from the shocks of the ropes. His clothes were soaked, and his hands were burned where he had pressed against the bonds, but he refused to leave her side. The woman leaned weakly against the pole, the last rope still hanging loose around her arms. She was free enough to stand, though her strength had not yet returned. Her glowing eyes were half closed and her breath came slowly. The guards were nervous. Some wanted to strike her down with spears, but others held them back. They had seen her voice split the air, seen the bonds shatter with light. None dared move closer. When the captain of the guard arrived, he stared hard at Ryan. "What have you done?" he demanded. Rian stood tall despite his pain. "I broke her chains. She is not an enemy. She was never an enemy. You all know the truth, even if you pretend not to." The captain's jaw tightened. He looked at the woman with fear in his eyes. "She is dangerous. She is alive," Ryan replied firmly. "And she deserves to live free." The guards shifted uneasily. They were torn between their orders and the doubt that now weighed on them. The woman lifted her head, her eyes glowing brighter. She raised a trembling hand and spoke. The words were not human, but her tone was clear, strong, commanding. The guards took a step back, unable to face her gaze. The captain hesitated, then barked, "Take them both to the council. Let the elders decide." Ryan did not resist as they were surrounded. He kept close to the woman, steadying her as she walked. Her legs were weak, her steps uneven, but she carried herself with dignity. Inside the city, whispers spread like fire. People poured into the streets, staring as the alien woman was led through the gates. Children clutched their mothers. Old men muttered prayers, and traders abandoned their stalls to follow the procession. For the first time in 20 years, the sentinel was no longer outside the walls. They were brought to the great hall, where the council sat in tall chairs of stone and wood. The elders of Ardan, dressed in long robes, looked down with stern faces. The hall was filled with guards, scribes, and citizens eager to witness the judgment. The captain bowed and spoke. "Honored council, the prisoner has been disturbed. Her chains are broken. This man is responsible." The eldest counselor, a man with a long white beard, studied Rian with narrowed eyes. "Step forward, boy. Tell us why you have defied the will of this city." Ryan's voice shook, but his resolve was firm. "Because your will is wrong. She is not our enemy. She fought beside us when the Sky Soldiers came. She saved lives. She stood as our ally, yet you chained her and left her to suffer for 20 years. That was no justice. That was fear." A murmur spread through the hall. Some nodded, remembering old tales. Others shook their heads, unwilling to believe. The counselor raised a hand for silence. "You speak boldly, but you speak without proof. What do you know of her? What do you know of her people?" Before Rian could answer, the woman stepped forward. Her voice rang out, weak but steady. This time she spoke not in her own tongue, but in broken human words. "Illyrian," she said. "Guardian, I came to warn, to fight with you, enemy. Greater than your wars, but you fear me chains long years." Silent years, the hall went still. Every word was heavy, each syllable carrying power despite its broken form. Ryan turned to the council. "You hear her? She came to protect us, and we betrayed her. And now you would continue this lie?" The eldest counselor frowned deeply. "If what she says is true, why does she return now? Why not leave us to our peace?" The woman's eyes glowed brighter. "Because danger returns." She lifted her trembling hand toward the ceiling, pointing upward. "They coming. The old enemy. The Sci-Fi soon." Fear rippled through the hall. Whispers rose, voices trembling. The counselor struck his staff against the stone floor for silence. "You expect us to believe this?" he demanded. Ryan stepped forward. "Believe or not, it changes nothing. She has endured when none else could. She has survived for 20 years without food, without water. That alone should tell you she is not ordinary. She is here because we will need her again." The council fell into heated argument. Some elders cried for her to be destroyed before she could bring danger. Others argued she must be heard, for the city could not ignore such warnings. The hall was filled with voices, fear and doubt clashing like swords. Amid the chaos, the woman grew weaker. Her body swayed, her strength spent. Ryan caught her before she fell. He guided her out of the hall as the arguments continued. The guards, uncertain, did not stop him. They made their way to a quiet corner of the city, an old house left empty after the last plague. There he laid her down and brought water. She sipped it slowly, her glowing eyes soft with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. Rian knelt beside her. "Who are you really? What enemy do you speak of?" She closed her eyes, and then he felt it again. The rush of memory. Not dreams this time, but visions flowing from her into his mind. He saw stars burning, ships of fire descending, worlds torn apart by shadowed fleets. He saw Illyrian warriors standing against the darkness, and he saw her among them, her body blazing with light as she fought. He gasped as the vision ended. "They are coming again," he whispered. The woman nodded weakly. "Yes, soon." Ryan sat in silence, his thoughts racing. The council would not believe her. The city was not prepared. But he could not let history repeat itself. He had freed her for a reason, and now that reason was clear. In the days that followed, he cared for her in secret. He brought food, though she needed little. He helped her walk, though her strength slowly returned on its own. Each day her voice grew clearer, her words stronger. She told him of her people, the Illyrians who had lived among the stars for centuries. They had fought to protect young worlds like Earth, but fear and betrayal had followed them wherever they went. "Humans. Strong," she said one evening. "But fear blinds. Fear chains." Ryan looked at her. "Not all of us. I will stand with you." Her glowing eyes softened. "Then hope remains," but hope was fragile. The council grew restless, divided by arguments. Some wanted her returned to the pole. Others wanted her executed. Only a few believed her warnings. Rumors spread among the people. Some began to see her as a savior, others as a curse. The breaking point came when a trader returning from the plains claimed to have seen strange lights in the sky at night. The council dismissed him, but fear spread quickly through the city. The woman's warning was no longer just words. One evening, as Ryan sat with her, she touched his hand gently. "Soon," she whispered. "They come, but not enough alone. Humans must choose. Stand or fall." Ryan looked into her glowing eyes and knew she was right. The council would not lead them. The people would not act unless someone showed them the truth. It would fall to him, an ordinary farmer, and to her, the forgotten guardian, to bring Ardan together before the storm returned. As night fell over the city, Ryan stepped outside and looked at the stars. Somewhere beyond them, ships of fire were gathering, and this time humanity could not afford to face them with fear. The sky above Ardan was dark with tension. Days of quiet had ended, replaced by an uneasy stillness. Rumors of strange lights beyond the horizon spread through the city. Traders abandoned their stalls, farmers left their fields, and guards patrolled the walls more nervously than ever. Every citizen felt it in their bones. Something was coming. Rianne stood atop one of the city walls with the alien woman beside him. She had regained much of her strength. Her body shimmered faintly, glowing in the dim light, and her eyes were bright with intelligence and awareness. She looked out across the plains, sensing things he could not. "They are close," she said. Her voice carried calm authority. "Ships in orbit, fleets of shadow fire. If we do not prepare, the city will burn." Ryan tightened his grip on the railing. "We need the council. We need the people to stand with you." She shook her head. "Fear binds them still. You human are the key. They will follow if you lead." The truth of her words struck him. For 20 years, humanity had relied on fear to make decisions. Now they faced an enemy whose strength they could not imagine. Only trust, courage, and unity could save them. Rian moved quickly through the city, visiting those he trusted. The old woman who had supported his belief came first. Then a small group of merchants, farmers, and even young guards. Each one listened as he told them the truth. The alien woman was their ally, the Illyrian guardian. Their enemy was returning. The city must stand together or fall. Some scoffed at first, unwilling to believe a foreign being could help them. Others hesitated, unsure if they could trust her after decades of ignorance and fear. But Rian's courage, his insistence, and the woman's presence convinced more than a few. Slowly, a small force gathered, humans willing to fight beside her. The council, divided and fearful, called a meeting. Elders argued, shouting over each other. Some insisted she should be sent away. Others demanded her death. Ryan and the small group stepped forward, determined to speak. "She is not our enemy," Ryan said firmly. "She fought for this city once and will do so again. If we ignore her, we will die when the enemy returns." The alien woman raised her glowing hand. "I will fight, but humans must choose to stand with me. Alone I cannot stop the shadow fire." The council fell silent. Citizens who had gathered to witness the meeting watched in tension. Some whispered to each other. Children clung to parents, sensing the weight of the moment. Finally, the eldest counselor spoke. "You ask us to trust a being we do not understand, to follow someone who was chained for fear. Why should we believe you now?" Ryan stepped forward, his chest heaving. "Because she has endured 20 years of suffering and remains alive. Because she warned us before and saved our lives before. Because she speaks the truth and we will not survive without it." The room remained tense. Then a sound came from outside. A deep hum, low and rolling like distant thunder. People ran to the windows. Rian turned, his heart pounding. Above the plains, ships glowed in the sky. Their shapes were vast and dark, triangular, radiating light that seemed alive. The fleet was real, exactly as the alien woman had said. Fear gripped the citizens, but Rian felt something else. Resolve. He turned to the woman. "We have no choice. We must fight," she nodded. "Then show them how humans can stand. Show them strength beyond fear." The city gates opened, and Ryan led the group of volunteers outside. The alien woman moved with him, her glow illuminating the rainy ground. She touched the weapons they carried. Simple blades and spears, arrows and shields. To Ryan's amazement, the glow infused the metal, making it stronger, sharper. The humans gasped, understanding the gift she gave them. "Use your strength," she said. "Trust yourselves. Trust each other." As the shadow fleet descended, the city prepared. Guards took their positions along the walls, farmers and merchants armed with spears and bows, and Ryan stood beside the alien woman at the forefront. The enemy ships loomed above, glowing with dark energy. Shadows moved across the plains like living darkness. Then the first attack came. Bright beams of energy shot from the ships, striking the walls and flattening the plains around them. The city shuddered under the impact. Humans screamed, weapons rattled, and chaos threatened to overtake courage. But the alien woman raised her hands, and a shield of shimmering light spread across the city. The beam struck it, scattering sparks and smoke. The humans behind her gasped. Their fear melted into awe. Ryan rallied the defenders. "Hold the walls. Protect each other." His voice carried over the clash of energy and the cries of battle. Slowly, humans began to move as one, their fear replaced by determination. They fought with skill, coordination, and courage. The alien woman moved among them, guiding their movements, amplifying their strength. A farmer threw a spear with perfect aim after she gestured. A guard lifted a collapsing wall section as if it weighed nothing, and children who could fight helped tend the wounded, their courage inspired by her presence. The enemy pressed forward relentlessly, but the humans did not break. Ryan realized what she had meant. The strength of humanity was not in their weapons, but in their unity, their ability to fight together. Hours passed, and the city began to push back. The alien woman moved to the front line, her glow brighter than ever. She fought with speed and precision, cutting through dark shapes with light blades that appeared in her hands. She never struck to kill carelessly. She fought to protect. Humans followed her example. They coordinated attacks, defended one another, and slowly turned the tide. The Shadow Fleet faltered. Ships that had seemed invincible were forced to retreat. Ardon had stood. After the battle, silence fell. The city was scarred but alive. Fires burned in the distance, yet no one wept. Instead, they gathered together, looking at the alien woman with respect and awe. Ryan approached her, exhausted but smiling. "We did it," he said. She looked at him, her glowing eyes softening. "Together," she replied, "humans have strength beyond fear." The council emerged from the hall, their faces pale. The eldest counselor stepped forward. We were wrong," he admitted. "You were right to bring her here, and you humans have proven your courage." The alien woman lowered her hands, the glow dimming but still present. "Remember this," she said. "Strength is not dominance. Strength is unity. Fear divides. Courage binds." Ryan looked around at the city, at people helping one another, tending the wounded, rebuilding walls, sharing water and food. He realized she was right. Humanity had faced a threat far greater than themselves and survived. Not because of weapons alone, but because they had chosen to trust and fight together. The Shadow Fleet retreated beyond the horizon. The alien woman turned to Ryan. "I will stay," she said. "To watch, to guide, to protect. But the choice is yours." "Humans must lead now," Ryan nodded. "We will not forget what you taught us. We will be ready." The city slowly returned to life. The alien woman, once chained and forgotten, now walked freely among them. Children ran to her, amazed at her glowing presence. Soldiers bowed in respect. Farmers and merchants offered food. Everyone knew she was no longer a sentinel on a pole, but a guardian of their future. As the sun rose the next morning, Ryan stood with her at the gates. The plain stretched far and wide and the sky was clear. He looked at her and smiled. 20 years she waited for someone to act, he said quietly. "I am glad it was us." She nodded, her silver hair shining in the sunlight. "Humanity is strong," she said. "Remember that, always." And for the first time in decades, the city of Ardon felt hope that was not tied to fear. The people had learned a powerful lesson. Strength was not in chains, but in unity, and together they could face anything.